Edge Designations, FRM Part 1, 2024 Introductory Video. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Russell Jude, and I head up the program for the FRM side on behalf of Edge Designations. Those unfamiliar with Edge Designations, we're a prep provider company that offers prep services for CFA, FRM, KIA, and now proudly as well for the FDP designation as well. The purpose of this introductory video for FRM Part 1 2024 is twofold. First and foremost, we want to introduce you to the FRM Part 1 program. Okay, and we'll be looking at that from the point of view of FRM. I'm sure everybody's aware that the governing body for FRM is called GARP. Okay, that's how you spell that one. So often if you hear GARP or FRM, they obviously very closely aligned. GARP is the governing body. So first and foremost, I want to take you through what you can expect from FRM Part 1, what's in the syllabus, what's your exam like, etc., etc. And number two is, and I want to introduce you to Edge Designations as a prep provider, show you what we can offer you, and hopefully assist you in getting through FRM Part 1 for 2024. Okay. Just before we get going, just of course, just to remember, guys, that your exam, the exam format, and now all the designations, interestingly enough, all the way ranging from CFA all the way through, are now completely what we call CBT. CBT is computer-based testing. That means that your computer, wherever you go and write your exam, and remember for FRM, there's going to be various study centers around your particular locations. You go there, they give you a computer, a keyboard, or everything that you need to be able to write, okay? And it's 100% computer-based testing. Everything is on the computer, okay? It's a 4-hour exam. What a lot of guys often ask, well, if it's a completely computer-based exam, do I get a bit of paper, pen, paper, something like that, to be able to do my rough workings and my calculations? Yes, of course you do. It's a little bit of a, depending on the specific location that you're at, some of them differ. You get a little bit of what looks a little bit like a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker, and you can just do your little markings there on that, and often when, and a little bit of an eraser, okay, and you just erase that, okay, and then you can do your workings on that, and then obviously all your answers and all your questions would appear then on the computer. Okay, FRM, interestingly enough, is the last designation, okay, the only designation, okay, of the ones at least that we offer, that is 100% multiple choice questions, okay, both for Part 1 FRM and Part 2 FRM. I'm sure by now everybody's aware that FRM, okay, comprises two parts, Part 1, Part 2, okay. We often get the question, can you write both of them together? When we look at some of the timings for the exam, yes, I'll show you that, in fact, yes, you can write them both together. There is a caveat, there is a warning, which we'll talk about, but we'll talk about that one in a second. Okay, just again, going back to the structure of the exam, guys, it's completely multiple choice questions, and remember, there are 4 options. There's an A, a B, a C, and a D. So if you're not sure of the answer, okay, and as I'm sure you guys will all see as you start to hop into the syllabus itself, okay, when we get to book number 2, which is called Quantitative Analysis, okay, your very first reading over there is probabilities, and then you'll know that at least if there are 4 options, okay, and you just need to guess one because you don't know the answer, well, of course, then you've got a 25% probability, 1 out of 4 of getting it right, okay. So yes, there's always A, B, and C, and a D, and generally we'll speak about this more as we get to the revision and exam section of the program, which we normally do about a month out before the exam time, okay. There's no penalizing for guessing, so if you're not sure the answer, you just guess. You've got A, B, C, or D, just guess, and you've got at least a 25% chance of getting it right, okay. When we now look at the structure of the exam, you've got 100 multiple choice questions, and you've got to do that in 4 hours. Now, the obvious question is that the maths of that is fairly simple. Okay, you've got 240 minutes or 4 hours, okay, to do 100 multiple choice questions. Okay, and we know the maths of that is also fairly simple. This is the only easy part of FRM. Okay, it's 2 minutes 24 seconds per question, or 144 seconds per question. And we often get asked, is that reasonable to do the questions in? Have I got extra time? Have I got... No. Okay, you don't have a lot of extra time, but yes, it is reasonable. In other words, you've got to really get into this exam. You've got 4 hours. 4 hours is a fairly long time to be able to focus on. You've really got to keep your head about you. And you've got to start to answer questions the minute you get in until literally the minute that you get out. But you can finish, okay, your exam. You can do 100 multiple choice questions in 4 hours. And in fact, yes, you must do 100 multiple choice questions. You have got to finish this paper, guys. And when we move, this video really is an introductory video, but we have other videos as we get closer towards exam time, which provide more in terms then of exam strategy and good things like that. How do you finish this exam in 100 questions in 4 hours? What are some of the tricks? What are some of the techniques? How do you practice? We've got all that kind of stuff for you. But again, that's not the purpose of this video. We'll do that closer towards exam time. Okay, so that's the structure of your exam. Okay, if you were feeling sorry for yourself, just remember you are in a good boat to be in, because I'll just tell you very briefly, Kaya's the least generous. They've got 72 seconds a question. CFA have got 90 seconds a question. You guys at FRM, okay, have got 144 seconds per question. But there's a reason why you've got more time than the others. Okay, you could pat yourselves on the back. Your questions are going to be slightly more difficult, more complicated, and lengthier than the questions that, of course, relate then to CFA and Kaya. That's why you've got a bit more time. Okay, and as I say, guys, can you do it in 144 seconds? Yes, you can. Some are a bit longer, but some are a bit shorter. We'll mix the time to make sure that you finish on time. But yes, you can do that. And of course, as mentioned, you have to finish. Okay, let's have a little bit of a look. That's the exam. Okay, just very, very briefly, how would that change when you move from FRM Part 1 to FRM Part 2? What changes is you've still got 4 hours for your exam, okay, but you've got 80 multiple choice questions. It's a little bit less, but again, there's a reason, of course, why there are less multiple choice questions in Part 2, because the complexity just does increase a little bit as well. Okay. We look over here, guys, at the exam waiting for FRM Part 1. There's 4 books that we talk about. The first book is called, interesting enough, FRM, okay, Fundamentals of Risk Management. It's a 20% book. It's not a crazy book. It's not an overly difficult book, because remember, it's just a fundamentals type book. We've got introductions in there. Okay, introductions to risk. We've got the CAPM model. We've got a modern portfolio theory, financial disasters, all that kind of good stuff in it. It's quite a theoretical book, and it's worth 20%. And of course, by now we know if there's 100 marks in the exam, 20% is 20 MCQs. Okay. Your next book, and this is what we often get asked, guys, is FRM Part 1 a very quantitative based exam? Well, it is, but it's not overly crazy. Okay, and you do book 2 QA exact stands for exactly that, quantitative analysis. It's a 20% book. Being a 20% book, of course, it carries 20 MCQs with it as well. Okay, and yes, it does get, but remember, when we talk about a quantitative analysis, and everyone starts to say, well, is it very quants based? Yes, it is. But remember, it starts on the bottom. We start in the quants book, book 2. We start off with probabilities. We then move on to distributions. We then move on to hypothesis testing, linear regression. And yes, it does get more and more complicated as we build into book number 2. But it's not your most crazy amount of quants that you're ever going to have to. It's not quantitative physics or anything crazy like that. Okay. Book number 3, I like to call book number 3, I hope it's not misrepresenting it, but I like to call book number 3, Financial Markets and Products, I call that the derivative book. Okay, it's 30%, so yes, there's 30 MCQs over there. I like to call that the derivative book. We get a lot of derivatives in there, guys. There's forwards, futures, okay, a lot on options and a little bit on swaps as well then on the back end. Book 4 is Valuation and Risk Modeling, okay, VRM, Valuation and Risk Modeling, again a 30% book, okay, 30 MCQs. That makes up, of course, guys, your 100 MCQs, okay, and that book's got a lot of fixed income in there, okay, duration, convexity, those kind of measures in there as well. Interesting enough, book 4 also does conclude with derivatives and the 3 major options topics, which is the Black-Scholes-Mertens model. It also deals with binomial options pricing model, and it closes off with the Greeks and their sensitivities. Okay, so that's your exam weighting. Nothing too crazy over there, nothing too easy, but nothing too crazy, very manageable, and those are your weightings, and that is what you can expect in your exam. We move over a little bit over here to talk about the exam itself, okay, dates and times. Now, there are 3 separate writings for FRM Part 1 in 2024. Okay, there is the 11th of May to the 17th of May. There's the 9th and the 10th of August, and you notice very specifically, I'm going to highlight that for you. That's an AM exam. It's a morning paper, okay? And then the 3rd time you can write will be November, 9 November to 15 November. And you notice you've got fairly large windows, particularly for May and November. And of course, that is because not everybody writes on exactly the same day, okay? Is because everywhere it's a computer-based exam, okay, and they obviously don't have enough computers for everybody to write on exactly the same day. So obviously they spread it out over across a slightly larger exam window. Okay. What's interesting, and I did mention this a bit earlier, and I said we would talk about this. In terms of can you write FRM Part 1 and Part 2 on the same day? Now, anybody that's written both of those papers will tell you you're probably insane to try and attempt such a thing, okay, because it is a fairly a tough ask, okay, but a doable ask, okay. So depending on exactly, how much, and the truth be told is it's probably dependent on your existing level of knowledge in these areas, whether you'd be able to manage that. Okay, I personally don't suggest it. We at EdShare, we don't really suggest it. Okay, but it is available to you. So, for example, you would write FRM Part 1 here. Let's say, for example, here 11th of May to the 17th of May. Keep in mind, of course, then that the FRM Part 2 window opens up then on the 18th of May and runs also for approximately a week as well. So you would write FRM Part 1 in that first week of May, 11 to 17 in that exam window, and then you would write your FRM Part 2 in the next window. The risk that you run with it, guys, and I've got to be perfectly honest, is that if you don't pass Part 1, your Part 2 results don't count, and you've got to redo that one again. So it is a risk that you take to write them both at the same time, because if for whatever reason, and it'll be a strange thing, I suppose, for you to have passed Part 2 but not Part 1, one wonders how that would in fact happen. But assuming that that does in fact occur, then if you fail Part 1, pass Part 2, your Part 2 pass does not in fact even count. Okay, so it is a bit of a risk that you take, but if you pass both of them, then yes, of course, then you are through and you have cleared the whole of FRM designation. Okay, there we go. So yes, and just a point to point out over here as well, guys, that the August writing, both Part 1 and Part 2 both write on the 9th to the 10th of August. It's exactly the same days, and that's why, of course, Part 1 is an AM paper, and Part 2 would then be a PM paper. Now that'll be a little bit heavy. You'd have to be writing your exams for 8 hours a day, 4 hours for Part 1 and then 4 hours for Part 2. Not an advisable strategy. Okay, but can be done. and that's why we obviously put it over here for you just to have a look at that. And your third exam writing, guys, is in November, 9 November to 15 for part 1. Part 2 then comes in after that. Okay, very important, guys, in terms of calculator policy. If you have a look over here, okay, there are 3 calculators and 3 calculators only that you can use. The TI BA2 Plus or the Professional, that TI is Texas Instruments. You can use your HP10 and your HP12. Those are the only, and a lot of guys say, well, what if we come in and we try use another calculator, guys? It's never worked before. It's never going to work. They watch you very, very carefully. So, no, you cannot come in with a different calculator. These are the only 3 calculators that one can use. Before I move into the next thing of what we at Edge could do for you in terms of our various products, okay, do take a look over here, guys, at the, okay, I just want to take you very briefly through the syllabus for FRM Part 1 2024. Now, if you have a look over here again, what I've done in this particular slide is we have broken down the entire syllabus into the 4 books. Book 1, FRM, Foundations of Risk Management. Book 2, Quantitative Analysis. Again, that's the 20% book. The first 2, Financial Markets and Products, is book 3, 30% book. And book 4 is Valuations and Risk Models. That's also a 30% book. And guys, if you look at the whole thing, I know it's not so clear to see, but that's not really the purpose. It's really to give you a bit of a taste of what's out there. You have got 11 chapters in Foundations of Risk Management. Okay, you've got 15 chapters in quantitative analysis. Okay, 2 new-ish ones. When I say new-ish, not new for this year, new from last year, 2023, machine learning methods and machine learning and prediction. Okay, you've got 20 readings, and you can see it's quite a big one, guys, for book number 3, which I often call the derivatives book. And then you've got 16 readings, or they call them topics at FRM, for book number 4, Valuations and Risk Modeling. Okay, and that is your syllabus. Now, and you can see overall, guys, there are 62 topics, 62 readings, 62 chapters overall. Now, is that a lot? Well, it is quite a lot. Keep in mind, the chapters are not overly long, okay, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done then for FRM Part 1. Okay, some good news. Okay, and I suppose it's more good news for those that wrote in 2023 and perhaps were not successful, is that there's almost no change in syllabus from 2023 to 2024. Okay, so just keep in mind, we often get the questions at Edge, but hold on, that video says 2023 on it, so I always say yes, it does. But no, we are not going to re-record our videos if there's been no changes to them. Obviously, that would just be a bit of a waste of time, because why change those videos when in fact there's been no change to them at all? So most of our videos remain the same. I'm quite glad to say that there was very little changes. Always the prep providers smile a little bit when there's not too many changes, because it makes our work a bit easier. But there we go. It's also good for the candidates, I suppose, that perhaps need to rewrite this exam and were not successful when they first wrote it in 2023. Okay, and just that we are here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but just to give you a little bit on it and just a bit of a, okay, and a little bit of the way that they think at FRM and the way that they manage their questions. Okay, so what would you say, for example, you look over here and you say, hold on a second, yeah, look here, okay, in this particular book number 1, let's have a look over here. Well, there's 11 topics altogether. It's a 20% book. Oh, a 20% book equals 20 MCQs that we know. And there's round about 10 or 11, well, we know there's 11 readings. So let's take 20 MCQs. Let's divide that by the 11 readings. Okay, it's approximately, okay, I'm not giving an exact, of course, 11 topics. That's approximately 2 questions per topic. Does that maths make sense? Okay, but that's not how FRM works. Okay, so your thinking would be right in such a way, but not for FRM. Okay, and the reason I say that is just something that we've got to keep in mind, guys. Okay, and we've got a separate video on this as well. Okay. I'm going to hop you across here to FRM 5, Modern Portfolio Theory and CAPM. Okay, I'm then going to take you across to FRM 9, Learning from Financial Disasters. Those two are the biggest readings then, or topics, in book number 1. And what you're going to find that you, out of the 20 multiple choice questions, you're going to get 7 or 8 coming from there. You're going to get probably 3 coming from Learning from Financial Disasters. Unlikely to get questions from certain of the remaining topics. So you can see, guys, from 2 topics alone, topic 5, Modern Portfolio Theory, topic 9, Learning from Financial Disasters, you're going to get probably at least 10 or 50% of your questions coming from 2 topics. Okay, so just keep in mind that as you go through your study, as mentioned, we do have a video on that just to try and highlight for you what are the more important topics. I am by no means telling anybody to please leave anything out. That's not my intention, guys. Okay, but just always just to keep in mind, and it's a good way just to plan your studies. Not all topics are equal. Some do carry more weighting, so you can't just take the total number of topics and say, well, let's divide that by the 100 multiple choice questions. That's not how they work. More weighting, more importance, more questions are given to certain topics. And as I said, I've got a separate video on that which highlights which ones we believe those are. Where do we get that from, guys? Where do we get our thinking on that from? Well, we use the past exam practice papers that are issued by GARP, issued by FRM. We break them down into the various questions where they do tend to keep asking the same stuff time and time again. And we highlight the importance then based on that. Most candidates come out of the exam and confirm that as well. Albeit that we're not allowed to talk too much to candidates about what's in the exam, which we don't do, but there's a bit of a sense of what is in there and what's not. Okay, based on that, guys, I'm now going to take you back to, hopefully by now you've got a bit of a sense of what you can expect from FRM Part 1, from an FRM perspective, from a GARP perspective, what is expected in your exam, what it's going to look like, what calculators you must bring, how you're going to write it, and what you can expect to be in that exam. What I want to do now is just to conclude this particular introductory video, just to let you know, guys, what you can expect from us at Edge. Okay, so in terms of the Edge program, what are we going to give you, guys? Okay, have a look over here. Okay, option number 1 is the online program. Okay, when you look at the particular online program, you get a complete set of notes, okay, covering all the learning objectives, everything. Okay, of course it's up to date for 2024, remembering of course there wasn't much change 23 to 24. Okay, complete set of notes, a complete set of videos, okay, a question bank, as well as a formula sheet there as well. Okay, option number 2 is typically what we release closer to exam time. Keep in mind, of course, our first exam will be in May, so we'll probably be releasing this end of March, early April. And this is called our revision program. Our revision program is a complete set of revision notes, again in PDF format, just like the notes on the full program are. Revision videos. The revision videos range between about 18 to 20 hours and takes you through the entire FRM Part 1 syllabus again. We've also got 3 practice exams with solutions. Okay, I'm always amused, always my students ask me, those practice exams that you release, do they come with solutions? And I'm always saying, well, if they didn't, it wouldn't be very useful, I suppose, but hey, there we go. But the answer to that, of course, is yes, they do come with solutions. They come on our electronic platform, so they get marked by the platform for you and give you feedback to where your strong sections, where your weak sections are, and obviously that'll allow you then to just remediate a little bit to some of the areas that perhaps you're not so strong on. And then the balance of the options over here, guys, option 3 through to option 5, are a little bit what we call a la carte. So, for example, if you just wanted a Q bank, if you just wanted a complete set of notes, or if you just wanted exams. But remember, guys, and we do get this quite a lot as well, if you do purchase, for example, the online program, okay, the online program will, yes, include the question bank and the complete set of notes. Of course, it'll give you videos then as well. Okay, so just from option 3 onwards, it's really just a case of a little bit more, if you wanted very, very specific types of data, of content, then those will be for you. Okay, and just the final thing, when we get asked this often as well, guys, if you wanted everything to make sure you are fully covered, you would buy option number 1, which gives you notes, videos, questions, formula sheet on the entire syllabus. Plus you would purchase option 2, which is the revision program, which gives you a complete set of revision notes, videos, and practice exams as well. You're more than fully covered. Okay, hopefully by now we've given you guys a bit of a sense of, number 1, what you can expect in the exam itself, the FRM Part 1 exam, as well as what you can expect from Edge as a prep provider. I'm just going to leave you with my email address for those that would like to make contact. It's russellj@ebs.co.za, and then our website, it is written over there, but it's probably a little bit small, www. And it tells you exactly what we do. Edge, we just do designations, edgedesignations.com. And that'll hopefully, if you want any further information or to visit our website, those are our details. At this point in time, we are done with the introduction. Time to get working, time to get busy. Wishing everybody the most amount of success for those that do decide to take on FRM Part 1. And if we can help in any way, please do reach out.